College basketball exhibition season is almost here, and it's bigger and better than ever.
You are Locked On College Basketball, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey there, what's up? Happy Thursday. Welcome into the Locked On College Basketball Podcast, the only daily national college hoop show out there. I'm your host, Isaac Schade, joined by our good buddy Leif Thulin, as always, midweek, and you're joining us at the place to get your college basketball content every single day. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Want to thank you for making us your first listen or watch, and want to remind you as well that you can catch every episode ad-free on Amazon Music. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if that bet wins, you're going to get $300 in bonus bets to spend all across the app. Download it today to get going. Want to send a special welcome to our everydayers who are here, as well as all the great members of the Locked On College Basketball Discord. We've been having some great conversation about these exhibition games we're about to talk about. If you want to get in on all of that college basketball action, that link's in the show notes. We'd love to have you there. Coming up on the show today, Leif, going to be a big fun one because, man, the exhibition season for college basketball has been growing by the year since the NCAA changed some legislation to allow high majors to play each other, for that to be public and all of this stuff. And it's made things really, really great. So, Leif, what I've done is I've ranked my top 10 exhibition games for the college basketball season. And dude, it's crazy because 9 of them happen in a span of 5 days. We've also got other exhibition things happen on, basically like MTEs for exhibition games. Some great under the radar games featuring high majors versus mid majors, a whole host of other stuff. We've got schools like both their exhibition games are against high major. I mean, it's crazy. It's so fun. So, Leif, here's where we're going to start. Let me give you my top 10 list, and then we can just make some observations about those games and this top 10 idea in general. So I've put ranks by the teams, and I just used Bart Torvik's rankings to go with this. So my number 1 game, Kentucky, number 14 against Purdue, number 4. That's Friday, October 24th at Rupp, time and TV TBA. My number 2 game is St. John's, ranked 8th against Michigan, 3rd. That's the next day, Saturday, October 24th at MSG. That'll be 7 Eastern time TV TBA. 3rd is number 6 BYU against number 18 North Carolina. That's Friday, October 24th at the Delta Center in Salt Lake City. Number 4, 13 Tennessee hosting number 2 Duke, Sunday, October 26th there at Thompson Bowling Arena, 7 p.m. Eastern TV TBA. Number 5 is number 11 Louisville against number 17 Kansas. That's Friday, October 24th at the KFC Yum Center, time and TV TBA. All right, Leif, let's just go ahead and pause there because that's a lot to take in already before we even get to the back half of the top 10. So to recap, Kentucky, Purdue, St. John's, Michigan, BYU, Carolina, Tennessee, Duke, and Louisville, Kansas. And dude, my mind is exploding as I read those games. How great are these?
I mean, they're really fun, especially because we can watch them, because they used to play these and you'd be like scavenging to see if like, hey, someone scored 15 points that we weren't expecting to be in the starting lineup. Like that means something. I remember a couple years ago, Seth Trimble had a huge game in one of these.
It was at Memphis last year.
Yeah, and then there was rumors like, oh, he might be the best guard on the team that were floating around, and then he all of a sudden has this monster game, and then he has the best game of the first game of the season. So everyone's wondering, oh, is he the best player in North Carolina after RJ was an All-American? And so that was published, but that used to not be published at all. Like you'd have to do really deep research to find anything. And now you can watch them for yourself. A couple of years ago, I remember watching Dalton connect against Michigan State and being like, okay, like that guy's the real deal. I'd heard good rumors, but like now I've seen him. So it's really fun to watch. Obviously, some of these teams are more established. Like Purdue, we all know all their players. I mean, I guess Omer Meyer is newer, but like if you are an avid basketball fan, you know what he brings to the table. And so I think in the case of Purdue and Kentucky, that's my number 1 as well. I know what each team has, but I'm very excited to see it coalesce for each team. And so I'm very excited for that one in particular. I'll watch all of them, of course, but that's the game for me that I think is the most fun, because I think that's the number 1 preseason team in the country. Purdue, at least that's the way I'd rank it. and Kentucky to me is my favorite in the SEC. So if you put that on paper, that means probably 2 top 10 teams going at it, especially in big time college environments. And I know they're not actual games and it's a scrimmage, but it feels more grandiose that way to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially because it's so new, right? Like we look for all these matchups in the non-con and we get a lot of these fun matchups, but man, this is so new for us that it's like, wow, like the season basically starts a month almost before, we otherwise would have gotten it. St. John's, Michigan, like getting an exhibition game at Madison Square Garden is going to be crazy. In fact, Rickinator 555 on our Discord said, I love this one because, quote, it's rare you see MSG get an exhibition. And I'm very curious to see how Ian Jackson does at point guard. And by the way, Leif, that brings up a fun storyline in this one. St. John's, Ian Jackson, and Michigan, Elliot Cadeau. We've got 2 former teammates going at it in the backcourt, maybe both of whom maybe they'll be guarding each other if Rick Pitino does indeed play Ian Jackson at point guard.
That'll be fun. I think Ian Jackson's going to have some extra incentive in that matchup. I think he's going to really take that personally. And with Pitino's up in your grill type of defense and everything, I think they're going to get some runouts and it'll be a very fun sort of exhibition because you're going to get transition dunks and stuff like that.
Leif, that BYU North Carolina game on Friday, October 24th, Vapor in our Discord said, Isaac Schade, this is the biggest exhibition game of the year. Vapor's a BYU fan there in our Discord, and I love that he's bringing it. Leif, you're planning to go to this one if I'm not mistaken, correct?
I am. I haven't ironed out the ticket or credential yet, but I am planning to be there.
Man, that one obviously featuring 2 of the nation's top freshmen in AJ DeBanza and Caleb Wilson should be a lot of fun there. Excited to see how how DeBanza meshes with Rob Wright, and how things come together there, and Richie Saunders and the rest of the crew. So going to be a lot of fun. Tennessee Duke. This is a game where the Vols knocked Duke out. Gosh, it's been a couple years ago now, but out of the tournament. That one's another true campus home game at Thompson Bowling there. That should be a lot of fun on Sunday. And man, Louisville, Kansas, again, really interested to see what both of these teams are because they're both going to be pretty new teams there at the Yum Center. And that one's interesting because both the game at Rupp, Purdue, Kentucky, and the game at Louisville, Kansas, Louisville, are both happening on Friday, October 24th, about an hour apart from each other drive time. Obviously, we don't know the time of these tip-offs yet, Leif. It's going to be exciting.
I mean, the craziest part is Kentucky, the state of basketball, has kind of just been in a lull since probably 2017. I mean, Kentucky had a good team in 2019 that, had a chance. They had a good team in 2020 that I think could have made a Final Four. They lost to Auburn and very easily could have won that game. But the 2020 that they lost, 2019 they lost to Auburn. 2020 they had a good team and COVID took away.
I was going to say they didn't do anything in the 2020 tournament.
Well, they had a chance. They were one of the hottest teams in basketball at that point, and I liked their team quite a bit. But they haven't had a team that I think has really generated buzz. Last year's team was like, okay, at least we're good. But I don't think anyone, not Kentucky fans, not any of us that were analyzing it, really believe they're a contender. I think this year, roster-wise, Kentucky finally resembles a team that can win a championship in the modern college basketball era. And Louisville's as back as they can be. Like, Pat Kelsey just did some media stuff, and he was talking about how last year's team was the revival team and how they'll be remembered for 20 years because they got Louisville back on the map. Well, this is a team that, can be a top 15 team and actually contend. I felt like last year it was a little bit of facade because they beat up on a terrible ACC. And sure, good for them. They made a tournament. But I never felt all that confident. This year's Louisville team, this year's Kentucky team, it reminds me more of that late 2000 teens era in which both the teams were good, especially the early era was Pitino versus Calipari, and you had them playing each other yearly and both teams regularly making deep runs. And I think we're getting back to that, and that's really exciting to me.
Leif, when you look at this top 5, it's obviously I'm using Torvik's preseason ranks here, and we could have used any of them. But when you look at it, all 10 of these teams are top 18 at Torvik. So in a span, all 5 of these games are that weekend of Friday the 24th through Sunday the 26th. So we're going to get 10 top 18-ish teams playing in these 5. I mean, it's absolutely crazy what we're going to get to experience. Man, it's going to be so much fun. And that's just the front half of the top 10. So Leif, we got to get to the back half of the top 10 where we got a whole bunch of other exciting games. We want to have some more takeaways from it. And we'll do all that coming up here in just a second. Right after I tell you about DoorDash, y'all, it's almost the weekend. It's time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order, these players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break down who it's going to be for this week. For the Miami Hurricanes, Carson Beck delivered in a big way. Beck helped the Canes obliterate South Florida, throwing for 340 yards and 3 touchdowns while rushing for another. When the pressure was on, Beck came through, no hesitation and no delay. And if you've been watching week after week, you know that this performance was not a fluke. Carson Beck is on a streak. And just like he delivered for the Canes, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays. With DoorDash Streaks, you save every Saturday you order. Stack it up all season, and you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. So order this Saturday, keep the streak alive, and fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply, and the promo period is going to run all the way through November 18th. This episode is also brought to you by FanDuel. Y'all, the NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for it with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you're going to get $300 in bonus bets to use all across their app. One of the great things about FanDuel is that it really does fit however you like to play, whether it's player props, building a same-game parlay, even jumping in live as the action unfolds. Man, the real time of that's pretty cool. It really makes every game even more exciting. So whether you're watching your team, maybe just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup, it's all great. It's quick, it's easy, and it's the best way to add a little more energy to your Sundays. In our world for college basketball, how about some national championship odds from FanDuel? Purdue, who we just talked about, leads the way at plus 900. Houston, plus 1,000. The Duke Blue Devils, plus 1,100. And UConn, who we're about to talk about in a second, at plus 1,400. That's your top 4 national championship odds. So, are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. Once again, that's FanDuel.com. We just looked at numbers 1 through 5 of my top 10 exhibition games for this preseason. Let's get to the back half, number 6 through 10. Leif, number 6. Oh, it's the John Calipari game. Memphis against Torvik's number 16 team, Arkansas. That's on Monday, October 27th. It's at FedEx Forum on ESPNU. We already know that's, I think, the only TV we already know in this top 10. Number 7, 10th ranked UConn against 22nd ranked Michigan State. Tuesday, October 28th at People's Bank Arena, which is the former XL Center. That's what it's called now. Time and TV TBA. My number 8 game, Leaf. Number 23, Creighton against number 15, Iowa State. That's Friday, October 17th. It's a home game for Creighton, 8:30 Eastern TV TBA. Number 9 game, Indiana. The first thing we'll see of Darren DeVries against Baylor. That's Sunday, October 26th in Indy at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. Time and TV TBA. And then number 10 on my top 10 list here is Wisconsin against Oklahoma. That's Friday, October 24th over at Fiserv Forum in Milwaukee, where the Bucks play Time and TV TBA. All right, Leaf. Another set of great games. I think we got to start with the Cal homecoming to Memphis.
Yeah, I see. The thing about that game to me is, what is Memphis? Because Memphis's identity recently has been PJ Haggerty, or in previous years Kendrick Davis, and they don't have either of those guys anymore. They also have lost some of those versatile, really good athletes in the front court, and so I'm curious what they are. The storyline of this game certainly top 10 worthy. I'm just curious to see how good Memphis is. And I think Calipari's Arkansas team, like, I've always been critical of Calipari. I thought last year's team, they pulled it together in the tournament, but that was a team that had considerable flaws throughout the year that I felt were very correctable. And the correction happened in the form of omission, in the sense that they had too many cooks in the kitchen as a ball handler. One gets hurt and all of a sudden everything clears up. This year's team, I think, has a really good roster. I think they'll be better sooner. Or at least I sure hope so. And then you look at Memphis, and they're just such an unknown commodity. So it really is the storyline on that one as opposed to the team. So if I were making a ranking devoid of, drama and storyline in terms of just like the quality of game. And it very well could be an awesome game. And they might both be really similar teams. I could be wrong. I would probably have this one slightly lower, but the Calipari, the storyline of it makes it super appealing. And I'm sure if you were to look nationally and someone else did this, I could see it cracking the top 5, even though for me, I think it's at the bottom of the top 10, if not there, just because I don't know what Memphis is.
And that's exactly why I have it where I have it, Leif, is it's like I was trying to balance, like, it's not as sexy a game as some of the other games, but the storyline of John Calipari coming back to FedEx Forum where he was beloved, where he basically held the keys to the kingdom in Memphis for so long, and then was reviled when he went to Kentucky. And now that there's like a stop between Memphis and right, like now it's Arkansas, and it makes sense for them to be able to welcome him home. And so I think this is a great moment for both of these teams, sure, but for John Calipari to be welcomed back to Kentucky, or excuse me, be welcomed back to Memphis. That was Freudian. And so that'll be really neat. Leif, elsewhere of the other 4 games from a purely game standpoint, because that's obviously the main thing we want to look at. We've got UConn, Michigan State, Creighton, Iowa State, Indiana, Baylor, and Wisconsin, Oklahoma. Which of those 4 games sticks out to you most as the one you're looking forward to?
UConn and Sparty, because I think UConn is a top 5 roster. So I'll have them in my top 3, top 4 in my preseason rankings. I'm pretty sure I'm going to have to do a little more analysis, but at this point, I would have them there. And Sparty made the Elite 8. They won the Big Ten outright. Like, this is a team that you would think, okay, they've got momentum, they've got this trajectory. Yet they're slightly an unknown as well. But
Yeah,
it is Michigan State. Like, Memphis has basketball history. Don't get me wrong, but it's not Michigan State.
right.
Michigan State's a contender in the Champions Classic, and many people are like, oh, they're not a true blue blood. Like, why are they in here? Well, they've been in that forever. So, like, forever, the sport that we love, marquee weekend to open the season, featured Michigan State. So to me, that's one of the biggest names in basketball against one of the most successful franchises in basketball, not only the past couple of years, but the past 25 years in UConn.
Yeah.
And I think just that alone, but also I think UConn's a top 5 team. I think Michigan State's a top 20 team. And so if we're, hitting 6th right here, that's a pretty good 6-hole hitter, as opposed to saying like that's the best team of best exhibition, because there's a lot of seasons in which that could have been the best exhibition.
Yeah, exactly. I think that tells us even more about the depth of this exhibition season. A couple other things from our Discord. Dr. T on Discord said about this game, I'm just curious as to how Michigan State will do against a team that's projected to be really good. And I think there's something to be said for UConn people wondering the same thing that Dr. T asked about, is like, will UConn be back? We expect them to, and it seems like the talent's there, but we got to see it. And Wolf on our Discord also said, I'm looking forward to this one because of the history, kind of as you alluded to, Leif, of UConn and Michigan State, but also because, UConn is also playing BC, Boston College, and that's the game he was saying. I'm looking forward to that one because of the history and because BC is blocking UConn from being in the ACC, to which most ACC folks would be like, actually, could we trade BC for UConn? Because we'd rather have them in our conference. So I'm excited for all of these games. Leif, something that stands out to me about this entire top 10 is so many of these are either like true home games or very close to it, right? Like, for example, games that aren't like played at one of these teams' home arenas, but close. BYU, Carolina in Salt Lake City. Indiana, Baylor. It's not in Bloomington, but it is in Indianapolis. Wisconsin, OU is not in Madison, but it will be in Milwaukee. And similar to what we talk about during the regular season non-conference schedule, it's like play these games at home sites rather than neutrals. And it's so neat to be able to see many of them as like ticketed events at home arenas. And I think that's good for college basketball.
I agree. And I think it's the right way to kick off the season, in the sense that your fans may be primed to football, and then they can know more about their team by watching them play, as opposed to just like checking the reports on Twitter and saying, oh, this person scored X amount of points in a secret scrimmage that they won't disclose the score of.
Yeah.
I remember years ago, I would check this religiously, and I'd be like, oh, sweet, Virginia and Villanova scrimmage, and Virginia beat them, and then Nova wins the championship. And you're like, okay, like that's interesting. but like it was, and those teams were really good back then. And then a couple years later, it was like Nova's had a sequence of scrimmages, and I don't know why, but they always had this mystique of like being super secret. And it was like they beat VCU, but they lost to another team, and it was like a bad Virginia team. And Virginia started the year kind of well, and I was like, see, clearly they beat Nova, and then they missed the tournament easily, and Nova makes the Final Four in 2022. Like, that type of thing. So it was always interesting to me where you would find that information. But now it's like in front of everyone. Like you can watch the game and you can see, hey, like this team looks pretty good. I remember Purdue played Arkansas, and Purdue lost, but you could tell
at Arkansas. Yeah.
at Arkansas, and
Yeah.
you could tell they were the better team though. They were working on stuff. Arkansas was desperately trying to win the game. And so to me, that I find that type of dynamic interesting as well.
And I think that's a great point, Leaf, because we catch the other thing we didn't get from those secret scrimmages when we were just getting numbers is we didn't get the context, like what team is actually like playing to win the game, who's working on stuff. And a lot of times they weren't even actually playing like just standard 20-minute halves. They'd do different situational things and things like that. So these games being public now gives us an opportunity to see the context of it as well and what's actually happening. Leaf, here's another big thing from this top 10 list. Again, we were using Torvik's rankings, but 7 of these top 10 on my top 10 list are top 23 matchups. So, I mean, just big time stuff. And here's the other thing, Leaf, a lot of this is going to start happening in October, but 9 of the 10 games in this top 10 happen in a 5-day span from October 24th to October 28th. So buckle up, guys, because that weekend leading the weekend before the weekend of the first games of the regular season is going to be appointment TV, and it's going to be crazy. And I think become just a regular part of our rhythms now. Like that weekend is always going to be big time. You can go, I've got a list here in front of me, but that in particular, Friday, October 24th, Saturday, the 25th, and Sunday, the 26th. I mean, the lineup is crazy, Leaf. Friday, Purdue at Kentucky, North Carolina at BYU, Kansas at Louisville, Kansas State at Mizzou, Wisconsin, Oklahoma, Nova at Virginia, DePaul at Notre Dame, Utah at Oregon. Saturday, the 25th, Michigan at St. John's, Colorado State at Creighton, Oklahoma State at SMU, USC at Grand Canyon, on and on and on. Sunday, the 26th, Duke at Tennessee, Indiana, Baylor in Indianapolis, Northwestern at Iowa State, Houston, Mississippi State, Arizona State, Texas A&M, NC State, South Carolina, Ohio State, St. Mary's. I mean, it's crazy, Leaf. It's absolutely crazy.
I mean, I love it. I'm happy to watch more ball sooner than I would have been able to achieve it. My one gripe about the schedule now is there's no Champions Classic to start. That is the sad thing, because even if I were going into a season blind and these teams weren't as good as they would be if they played later on, there is nothing better than on a Tuesday in November turning on Kansas versus Kentucky. And then you'd say, oh my goodness. Like I remember when I was in 7th grade, or maybe it was 8th grade. I think it was 8th grade. And it was Jabari versus Andrew Wiggins. And I remember the next day I was watching, I was talking to my friends, like, oh, like, well, the Jazz are going to be bad this year. We should get one of these guys. And like, it was super, super fun to turn into the season and be like, I'm a devoted fan. I always have been. But like my friends would come and watch it because it was big time games. And now it's like, okay, college basketball fans ease their way in. And I think this is good for college basketball in order to have these scrimmages so more fans know more about their teams sooner. But I feel like you need that marquee splash matchups to really get people into the sport sooner, rather than have people that join in February and March, which of course is going to happen. And that's all good and well. But as a basketball lover, that I think is the best way. You get these scrimmages, you get people the appetizer and the entree is the Champions Classic. Like that's my one wish, is that they bring back the Champions Classic, they open the season. And yeah, it may not be as good for Duke, it may not be as good for Michigan State, but it's so much better for the sport of college basketball. And you know what? Go out there and win that game, and all of a sudden you have a huge win already on your resume.
Yeah. And that's the thing. My understanding, as you said, and that's my understanding, is that it's specifically the schools that asked ESPN to push it back. And that's why it has been. But thankfully, other teams have scheduled big games either that first Monday or Tuesday or that first weekend of the regular season. So that'll be helpful as well. Leif, while we've done a top 10, that is just 10 of a slew of a lot of fun games. And we're also going to get some interesting events as part of this exhibition schedule. We'll lay some of that out and more coming up in just a second. right after I tell you about Mazda, who crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride, with more IIHS Top Safety Pick Plus awards than anyone else as of August 2025. From footwork to breathwork, athletes sweat all the details, and Mazda brings that same level of intentionality to how they craft every single model. You can feel that incredible Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to the available Nappa leather upholstery. With all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season. Because with Mazda, everyday drives feel like anything but, from smooth handling to intuitive controls. Like our players on all these teams we're talking about, Mazda sweats every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. Leif, one of the other neat things that's happening in the exhibition season, which is basically October, is we're getting actually some events now. And I wonder if we'll see a proliferation of these as well. But two that I want to point out that are happening this year. One is in Birmingham, Alabama. It's called Ballin and Boutwell. This is a Boutwell Auditorium is a historic venue in Birmingham that last hosted men's basketball over 45 years ago. Last year, they did an exhibition there between Alabama and Wake. And this year, we're getting a whole schedule of games. Monday, October 13th, Alabama A&M versus Samford. Less intriguing, I'm sure, for our national audience, but it kicks it off. Wednesday, the 15th, Auburn against Oklahoma State. And Auburn's also playing Memphis down in Atlanta. I forget the date of that off the top of my head. And then the next day, Thursday, the 16th, the Alabama women will play Florida State women earlier in the day, and then the Alabama men against the FSU men later on Thursday. Also cool, Leaf. Juveniles doing a concert that Friday night. That takes me back to my high school days in the early 2000s. This is a cool event going on in Birmingham with a lot of Alabama schools.
I mean, I love it. I think if people have been watching recently, though, Bucky's gone. Samford made a national resurgence. They played that game against Kansas. I was actually there, and it was awesome. They lost 92-91 and would have had a chance if a call had gone their way. I think it's very good for the sport to have these kind of regional ties and play multiple games at a singular venue. I know there's a few, I wouldn't call them tournaments, but there's a few teams playing at the same venue on opening day of the actual season. And so if you were to play these exhibitions, I think it gives more fans more exposure to the teams in their area. And I think it's really cool that Auburn's playing in it, particularly because that's a team that just made the Final Four. That's a team with high hopes this season. And it's not just, okay, we can go to this historical venue and watch Samford. No offense to Samford, but like Auburn's the one that's drawing the venue right there. And so I think it's really nice that you can get a 2-1. And I wish more teams that are from a highly populous area would do such a thing, because that means there's multiple schools in that area. And so I'm excited for that.
And we had, when I asked for votes from our Discord of the game people were most looking forward to, the Alabama FSU game actually received a couple votes from our Alabama crew in the Discord. Shouts to you guys. And so, yeah, we've got a team that was a Final Four team last year and a team that was a Final Four team the year before in this event. Really cool. And excited to see how Lenny Acuff does taking over at Samford for Bucky McMillan. The other kind of event that we have is called the Preview College Basketball Exhibition. This is going to be at Fort Bend Epicenter in Rosenberg, Texas. Leaf, that's in the southwest suburbs of Houston. This one's on Sunday, October 26th. So on that loaded weekend. And dude, it's funny because you just mentioned him, A&M and Arizona State. So Bucky McMillan, that's going to be, we believe, 4 p.m. that day, Eastern time. And then we get maybe one of the national front runners for national champion, Houston, taking on Mississippi State. And that'll be interesting. That'll follow the first game. So A&M, Arizona State, Houston, and Mississippi State at the College Basketball Exhibition in Rosenberg, Texas, Leaf. So that's another fun exhibition there.
Well, poor Josh Hubbard is all I can say. That's not a fun start as you go play Houston.
He's going to hate his life.
That's not the confidence booster you're looking for to open a season. I mean, that's not fun at all. I mean, I remember in high school, I went to a small high school. I started as a 14-year-old. In our first game, I was like, okay, that's not too bad. Then we played a big school, and I was 14. And the guy guarding me was 6'4". I was like 14, like 5'8", and the guy guarding me was like 6'4", 240. And that was eye-opening. So It's not, obviously they're on more similar pars as Hubbard's a fantastic player who plays in the SEC. I don't envy anyone going up against Houston for their first action of the season.
No, that's miserable. I would be sweating it every night. Leif, another kind of category of exhibition games I'm excited about is we have several examples of high major teams playing well-known mid-major teams or teams that have done well. Let me just give you a couple examples. Here's another thing I like about it is several of them are at the home arena of the mid-major school. So we've got San Diego State hosting UCLA on Friday, October 17th. They're at Viejas. That's going to be at 10 p.m. Eastern. Another one in that category is Vandy at UAB. Speaking of Birmingham, that's on Thursday, October 23rd, a true road game for the Commodores. Another West Coast one, Arizona is hosting St. Mary's at the McHale Center on Saturday, October 18th. That'll be at 4 p.m. on ESPN+. Baylor's playing Grand Canyon. Makes sense there, obviously, with the little Drew connection. And then UNLV is coming up to Washington on Sunday, October 19th. Leif, I love this high major, mid-major kind of situation and a little Drew family love as well thrown in.
Yeah, there could be some upsets in those, honestly. Like
Legit.
Grand Canyon's certainly not devoid of talent, and Baylor's got a lot of figuring out who's going to do what. And then you look at San Diego State, UCLA. UCLA should win. Don't get me wrong.
Should.
But San Diego State made the Final Four. They made the championship game. Like, this is a team that expects to win. They don't see themselves as underdogs in that game, despite having a lack of talent compared to the depth of experience that they had in the years past. But they get Magoon Guath back. You look at that team, and it's not bad. And UCLA's got some moving pieces.
And specifically at that position where Magoon Guath plays, right?
Exactly. And he's a guy that will make an impact. He's going to be one of the top 3 or 4 block guys in the entire country. And so I think there's a world in which that game's closer, especially because the pace that both these teams play are slower. And so it's not like the overwhelming talent is going to be as shown because there's not as many possessions. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's an upset. I wouldn't bet on it, but I could see an upset in a couple of those games.
Yeah, I'm excited to see Donovan Dent mixing in with those returners in Sky Clark and Bilodeau and Eric Daly. Should be a lot of fun. And obviously Viejas is a tough place to go play. I know it's exhibition season, but I guarantee you that place is going to be rocking. The other one that's interesting, 8 count from our Discord said, the game he was excited about is Arizona against St. Mary's. Said, I think there might be potential for Arizona to be slightly underrated. The fandom is familiar with their incoming class, but I think the rest of the media doesn't really know what's coming in. Obviously, we've talked about Arizona's incoming freshman talent on the show, Leif, but man, and that up against Randy Bennett and the Gales' always strong defense, that should be a really interesting test for that young Arizona team.
I agree. I think Arizona's got the makeup for a team I like more than their previous teams. I feel like they've been heavily flawed in the sense that they have 1 or 2 guys that really get the ball, and if they're off, then the rest of the team is kind of out of sync. I think this team should have more of an egalitarian attack, but they're certainly not devoid for talent. They have stars coming in. I think Koa Pete has an outside chance of being an All-American. I think Koa Pete could be one of the best players in the Big 12, and then he's not the only 5-star coming in. And you look at what they bring back, and it's substantial still. So I think Arizona's got a chance to be good. St. Mary's, Randy Bennett, I think is one of the most underrated coaches in the country, and he's still rated well. That just speaks to how good he is, because this is a team that lost Aiden Mahaney, who many thought was the best player on the team, and then had its best statistical year. Like they won a game in the tournament over an SEC team, and then pushed the next game was not a blowout. Like they fought hard in the following game after that. And so I think St. Mary's is always a unique challenge because of the pace with which they play. Arizona should win that, but I think Arizona, even if they lose that game, does have a chance to be one of the better teams in the Big 12.
Yeah, I mean, it's such an intriguing mix at Arizona because, you mentioned Koa Pete, but then there's the other freshmen in Braden Burries and Dwayne Aristode, and that worked in with guys that are returning with Krivas and Jaden Bradley and Delors. I mean, it's going to be an intriguing mix for Tommy Lloyd, and I'm very excited to see how it comes together. Leif, obviously a whole bunch of other games that we're going to get to see in this exhibition schedule. This is just the tip of the iceberg, but we just wanted to whet everyone's appetite for what's coming. And because of that, we don't have to wait till Monday, November 3rd for great college basketball, man. It is going to kick off here in just a couple weeks. So get amped. literally Monday, official practice starts, and even before exhibitions get going, we're also going to have a lot of inter-squad matches going on as well, a lot of which are televised in this day and age too. So great stuff coming in just a couple weeks. Hang tight, everybody. Thanks so much for being with us here today on the show. If you've not subscribed to Locked On College Basketball on YouTube and audio, do it right now so you don't miss a second. If you have not joined the Locked On College Basketball Discord, I shouted out a whole bunch of folks from our Discord today. Shouts to all you guys. If you want to join us in there, man, make sure to grab that link from the show notes and hop on in. As always, we want to say apologies to the Lawyer family. Let's go Wild Popes. Shouts to the McBruins. And until tomorrow, peace.